My first social justice passion was the environment, and that quickly morphed into a concern about the climate crisis. In fact, I went to law school with a general desire to work in the public interest, but also to study environmental law. I obtained both my JD and my Master's of Studies in Environmental Law, and my first position out of law school was working in international sustainable development. Stopping or slowing the climate crisis continues to be issue number one for me. It has affected every personal decision that I make in life, from where I live, to the car I drive, to what I eat and what I wear. I work hard to make sure that my lifestyle is one with a low carbon footprint. I offer this as an introduction to say that over the years, I've heard stories about the impending climate migration and how the climate crisis was affecting migration patterns and exacerbating poverty. But it wasn't until a couple of years ago, when I was hired to represent the client that I referenced in my article, that everything changed, or at least that everything connected. As I dug into her case, I learned more and more about the environmental and indigenous defenders in developing countries the world over. These defenders are fighting a quiet but deadly fight. They're fighting over land and resources, but the land and resources they are fighting to protect are often key to our own survival, such as the rainforest in Brazil. Around the time that I was preparing my client's asylum case, I also began to read more about the Central Americans who were coming to the United States, often because the changing climate had made it impossible for them to continue living in their own countries. As I dove into the legal literature about climate migration, I really became fed up. Much of the literature spent what I thought was an inordinate amount of time discussing what to call people who were forced to flee from their homes. Is it climate refugee? Is it climate migrant? Is it environmental refugee? They also spent a lot of time discussing whether we should have an international agreement or what that agreement should look like. And really, I wanted to know what we could do right now to offer protection to the people who are very much here in the country. There is no hypothetical agreement that can protect people who have already been displaced. Because my immigration background has been working in the humanitarian protection sphere on asylum, TPS, humanitarian deferred action, and similar cases, I felt like I knew the law well, and each seemed well placed to offer protection. That's where I decided to start with my article. I wanted to start the conversation on using the legal resources and systems that we have available to help now. For too long, we have talked about the environment as one issue, immigration another, and racial justice still as a separate issue. But in discussing the massive problem we have with the climate crisis, we have to recognize that all of these issues are really rolled up into one. We must tackle it as a single issue. In the United States, we must accept that we are one of the leaders in the world in climate crisis emissions. As immigration lawyers, we can't separate our desire to protect our clients from the reality that the protection actually needs to start in their own home countries. By us curbing our own carbon emissions and by our country offering real assistance for mitigation and rehabilitation in those countries. We really need a holistic approach that's not top down, meaning that we need to do what we can do here to stop the climate crisis. But we have to offer those in the hardest hit countries the resources they need to help themselves and empower them to help themselves. And we have to figure out how to work with our immigration system to offer the greatest protection to those who are suffering in large part because of our actions here in this country. I wrote this article with the hope of educating immigration attorneys on the issues and offering a plan to at least get started in offering protection to those migrants who are coming to our